You got to do the intro for this one. We're going to talk about fitness today.
Uh-oh.
That's good.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about fitness here. So Dave and I have been talking about, pushing Seeking Wisdom into some new areas. Health is one that Dave and I actually talk about a lot outside of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And Dave is healthy, me not so much, but I like to talk about it at least.
He's being humble.
Yeah. So we talk about it, and we probably spend as much time sometimes talking about this as we do other things throughout the day that we usually talk about here. So we want to pull you in. We want to actually share what we're doing, and we want to learn from all of you listening to this. So hit us up, on Twitter, and hit us up directly and just tell us what you're doing. We want to learn. We're here to learn, right? This podcast is called Seeking Wisdom. It's not We Have Wisdom.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good intro. That was pretty good. Mm-hmm. Unscripted, good intros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we want to talk about, we love things other than tech. But the thing that I think that we like about all of these other things, mm-hmm. Learning, working out, family, whatever, is that they all have so many lessons that apply to business. Yep. And so that's what so today I'm going to call this episode 10 Minutes on Fitness. Just to switch it up. We're going to talk about something different. As David said, something that we talk about all the time. So first of all, when did fitness become so important for you? And we got a coffee before this, and you were talking about, working out this morning, and we all, we talk about that almost every day. Has it always been that way for you? Is this something that you kind of came on to later?
It's newish. No, I'd say so. I used to lift weights back in the day when I was in high school and elementary school mostly.
Bench press,
back, read, early Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine. And me and my friends would go work out at this gym called Ferrigno's, which was Lou Ferrigno's gym.
Awesome.
If you've ever watched Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno was someone who's Mr. Universe a long time ago and competed for Mr. Olympia.
And he was the Hulk.
Yeah, he was the Hulk on TV. And so we used to work out at his gym, and actually, tangent, but the other people used to work out there that we would see is Q-Tip, from A Tribe Called Quest work out there. Got to spot him a couple times.
Where was his gym? In Queens?
This was in Queens.
Damn.
Tiny, no air conditioning, mostly professional bodybuilders who were all, juiced up to their eyeballs, giant, like humans you would never see walking the street, monsters. And then for some reason Q-Tip worked out there and LL Cool J worked out there.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. And we were like, young high school or junior high school, kind of like kids in there working out. And so got into it there, continued to do it later, kind of into my early 20s. And then really got into starting companies and had kids and whatever, and didn't work out for a long time, gained a lot of weight. And then I'd say about 5 years ago, I lost a lot of weight and really got into fitness. 5 years ago, I started doing CrossFit, and I had been following CrossFit for a long time and really got in something Dave does, but I really got into it because I was reading back in the day. They had this thing, they might still have, the CrossFit Journal, and so I was reading all these papers they were publishing. They were PDFs. You had to pay for a subscription that they were publishing. What I loved about it was that it was kind of great for someone with ADD because every day you'd have a different workout and all that stuff. And so that got me back into it.
Yeah. So you have a good balance. Like, I feel like maybe from the outside, not being inside your head, but you have a family, you work out, but you fell off the wagon for a little bit. How did you get it back on track? I think that that's something that comes up is, a lot of friends that work in the startup world, it's just I don't have the time. And now this goes back to something that we talk about all the time on this podcast. It's about priorities.
It's priorities. So that's how I got back into doing it, was just I had to figure out, and everyone figures out their own template, but how it was going to make it a daily habit, right, to do something related to fitness. And so I had to carve out some part of my day, and always the easiest part for me is in the morning. That's the most controllable. So it just meant I had to sacrifice. I had to get up earlier. I had to force myself to do it in the early days. I had a CrossFit person who owned a CrossFit gym train me, in the early days. So I did private lessons in the beginning before jumping in and doing the regular workouts. So got a bunch of private trainers, and private trainers were good in that they held me accountable, right? So you needed some level of accountability because I paid for it and I scheduled it, and there was someone who was like texting me.
By it's not like it's one. Yeah, you pay for a gym membership.
Yeah,
but that's a monthly charge, right? And it gets done. But when you pay by appointment, it's really expensive. And then there's someone texting me saying, "Where are you? It's time to come. I'll see you tomorrow morning. 5:30 a.m. Get ready." Yeah. And so it just was that accountability that I needed, and I did that for a couple of years. Had a private trainer in CrossFit, and then I didn't need it anymore because I had the accountability built in. Reps and sets, reps
and sets. Yeah. And then what I've always loved about lifting weights in some form or another is progression. And we talk about progression a lot on Seeking Wisdom. It's something when you set a goal, whether it's I want to lift a certain amount of weight by this date, or I want to be able to do this many reps, or this amount of run this fast,
or we got to get X number of customers by this quarter.
Exactly. Then you start making an incremental day over day progress, and you see that, and then you see that you can actually do it. I mean, I think as humans, we are naturally geared towards setting goals and having progression in our life.
Yeah. I like that because there's so many lessons in what you just said, which is like you have the time, you just got to prioritize the right things. And if anything, like I know you're the same way. Like for me, I think getting that workout in actually makes all the other stuff I'm going to do later in the day more productive. Totally. And so it's important. You said so I wrote a little note. You said the morning is controllable, and so I never used to be a morning person. Hated it. Just wouldn't get up. Like I could sleep till whenever. Yeah. So my routine was like, I was in my early 20s, single guy. Yeah. Like, wake up 7:30, shower, go to work, go to the gym after work, have dinner 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. That doesn't work very long.
Then I started dating my now wife.
Yeah.
And
she
was getting pissed because we weren't having dinner until 8 o'clock.
Yep.
We didn't, we weren't living together, so we'd have to make time to hang out. And I was like, I want to work out, but we got to hang out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to admit it to myself, but the only time that I could have to myself was in the morning.
Yeah. And so that's what I find is common with people who are able to make this last is that they either carve out super early. Most people I know do it early, but then there are some people who do it, especially if they're married or they have have kids, or have a crazy professional life. They may do it when everyone else is asleep, right? So they go pretty late. So you got to pick one
end or the other.
Yeah, and you can't. Mistake that I've always made is you can't oscillate between those two. You can't be like early for 2 days, late one day. It just messes everything up. You just got to pick one and try to commit as much as you can towards it, and say I'm always going to be the morning guy. I'm always going to be the night guy. Doesn't always work out that easily, but you got to shoot for that. That's got to be your goal. But one little trick that I want to talk about quickly here.
Do it. That's why the people listen.
Yeah,
give the trick.
Is this one trick that I've tricked my head? This is how I tricked my head. Is when I meet someone, because everyone falls into this pattern of like, I don't have enough time. I'm too busy. Too many things going on. This week is crazy. I'm traveling. Blah blah blah. All this kind of crap. I do it all the time too. And one way that I trick myself is that when I meet someone who's accomplished, and that doesn't mean professionally. That could just be is incredible from a fitness standpoint, from a family standpoint, whatever the dimension is that I'm interested in. They're just great at something that I am lacking in. The thing that I tell myself, or the way that I trick myself, is I tell myself that person only has 24 hours in a day, just like I do, right? Sounds simple, sounds silly, but every time I just keep retelling myself that of just like they have the same number of hours I do, right? Bill Gates has the same number of hours as you do. Warren Buffett has that. Whoever it is, that's on the financial side, but it could be someone athletically. Rich Froning, who's a CrossFit champ, right? You do CrossFit. Dave does CrossFit. Rich Froning has as many waking hours as you do, right?
But you don't even have to go to that extreme. Like you could find, we talk about tech companies, right? Yeah. You could find somebody who works at a startup and is in amazing shape.
Oh yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And guess what? There's no shortcut. Yeah. They don't have a secret. They don't go to the gym at 5 o'clock. Yeah. Right? You know what the answer, just like a lot of things, you know what the answer is going to be. You know when that person gets that work in. and you just don't want to admit that it's 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and you don't. It's just like the mind.
I
shift
love that thing. I love that notion of like which we talk about, which
all
is like
the time.
You know what the answer is. I always have this thought, and the more time that goes on in my life, the more I keep thinking like, so many times in your life, in my life for sure, you're going to wake up at different points and say, I always knew what the answer was, and it was right in front of me. Just remember that. Yeah. You remember that as your life progresses. You've heard that from us. But just think about that over time, and I'm telling you, it's going to be true. So many times in your life, you're going to say, I already knew what it was, and it was right there, but I couldn't see it for whatever reason.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I've been noticing that a lot more because, like I told you, trying to read more, right?
Yep.
It's become a habit. Very, very rarely do I now read a book, amazing book, but I never feel like, oh my God, that's a new idea.
No.
The reading has just been like reinforcing to the things that I already knew.
I forgot that. I forgot that. Right? I knew that, but I forgot.
Like ego is the enemy.
Yeah.
Something we're reading, right? Or I just got you suggested to the rest of the team here.
Love it.
We'll probably do a review on that. But like, if you say that out loud,
you already know
that.
Yes.
You just need to sit down and read 300 pages on it to really like
let it sink in, right? It's back to what you said, reps and sets, because you need reps and sets for it to sink in. So tell me about what you do fitness wise. And when did it start?
Okay, so you mentioned that I do CrossFit. I started 2 years ago, and up until that point, I hated everybody that did CrossFit. So I've always played sports my whole life. I played Division I sports in college, and so like lifting and working out has kind of always been, basically since high school, has been a part of my universe, and I've always loved it. Like my best friends from home, like every summer when we were home from college, and our thing would be we go to our jobs. At night we go to the YMCA in Worcester. That was our favorite thing to do. Is like go to the gym together. That's what we like to do. There was girls there was people there. Like that was the spot to be, and we liked working out. And then I started working, and I would keep my I always very disciplined about keeping my I'm a very routine guy. Always kept it going. But then a couple years ago, I just hit this point where like there was only so many. Monday would be, chest and I would lift weights. Monday would be chest and tries. Tuesday, back and buys. Wednesday would be cardio.
He's doing the bodybuilder workout.
That's what I want to do because you want to get big, right? And so like that would be my routine. And then it just got so boring, and it got really hard to stick with it, and really not stick with it, but I would go, but I felt like I was going through the motions. Right around that time, like everybody started talking about CrossFit, and I was like, man, I don't need to go to a class to be taught how to work out.
And CrossFit people can be annoying.
They are, and I don't like 90% of them, right? And it doesn't mean you have to change to be a part of that. And so I started like just sneakily looking at the workouts on CrossFit.com. They post a workout every day. And I loved how I didn't have to plan my workout. I didn't have to think about, here's what I'm going to do today. I would just go to this website. It would tell you, here's the workout, and then I would go do it. And eventually I couldn't keep doing all the stuff at the Y or like our Boston Sports Club. So I finally went to a gym, ponied up the money.
It's expensive.
It's expensive, but this is the art. Back then I would say, oh my God, it's so expensive. I don't need to teach myself how to work out. But now 2 years into it, I've seen the difference. I've seen like, how good shape it gets you into. And now I'm like, it's $200 a month. But how are you going to tell me that a couple grand a year is not a good investment in your health and well-being?
An investment in yourself is always the best return, right?
And it's you get what you pay for. You pay $40 a month to go to the Y, and
get nothing. It's so funny. I don't do CrossFit anymore. And we can talk about that. But I still love it. But I stopped doing it a few years ago. But in 2009, 2010, I can't remember what year it was, but right around the time that we had started my last company, Performable, Elias, who's our CTO here and co-founder at Drift, and was also CTO and co-founder at Performable, I talked them into taking a CrossFit class, 2009, 2010. Damn. There wasn't even a box or a gym in our area, so we drove up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which was an early...
And this was like rugged. This was when CrossFit was just like, people thought it was just like flipping tires and carrying logs, crazy. Which is not like that at all.
Somehow I convinced them to do this, right? And I it's around that time frame because I know we started the company in 2009, and we were working out of my house in the very beginning. and we drove from my house there. So it was around that time. So we drive up there. It's not even a full class because it's like the intro, because they have to like test you, right? So it's just the instructor, the guy, and Elias and myself, right? And he takes us through, if you know CrossFit, it's a Cindy workout. And it was modified, so it wasn't a full one.
It says 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats.
Yeah, exactly.
And you do that for 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes. Yeah. So it was modified. So it was something like 12 minutes or something like that, or whatever the amount was. It was more than 10, but less than 20. So he takes us through that, and all of a sudden we're doing it, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking at Elias, who's in better shape physically, I think, than I am at that point. But for some reason, I see him he goes down on the ground, right? And I'm like, what is going on? And all of a sudden, like, he doesn't make it through the workout, and he's like, he has to run to the bathroom, and he throws up in the bathroom, right? And so I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, this guy's in better shape than me. He couldn't do it. And then we left. So we leave there. We're driving back home. All the way home, I'm pulling over on the side of the road because this guy is throwing up on the side of the highway. So we get to my house. My wife's, I can't stop laughing for some reason. It's both nervousness and laughter, so it's like nervous laughter. I can't stop laughing. I get in my house. I'm laughing like crazy. My wife Elias does not look too good, right? He's looking blue. Yeah. My wife comes down the stairs. She's like, what's going on? She hears me laughing. And so I tell her this story, and all of a sudden she turns to me and she's like, what's wrong with you? She's like, you could have killed him. Elias has 3 kids.
I have this picture.
Yeah. What are you doing? This stuff's too extreme.
But
You're so extreme all the time.
This is the best example. Like, this is stuff. But so this workout, it's pull-ups,
push-ups, it's all body weight.
And body weight.
Yeah.
And you put yourself in that type of situation.
So quickly, because it's so funny if you haven't done CrossFit. Like, and it was one thing that was always interesting to me. Most of the workouts are really short. You warm up for a long time, but like you would look at the workouts if you come from any other modality, and you would say like, what 8-minute workout?
I'm paying $200 a month for an 8-minute workout.
And then you go in 2 minutes under, you're like, panic.
Your heart rate gets so high and you don't know how to get it down.
You don't know how to get it down. You're like, I got to leave this place. I remember the first time that I went, so I continued CrossFit after I almost killed Elias. And I went and I was doing the private training, and all of a sudden I go, I show up on a Saturday class. And what I didn't know was Saturday classes are partner classes. They partner you up. Not good. No bueno.
I hate it so much.
So I show up, and it's packed gym, and they're like, we're going to do partner Murph. And Murph is like,
you do a mile run.
Yes.
Then you do 100 push-ups,
yep.
100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 air squats, yep. And then another mile run.
It was longer than that because partner Murph, it wasn't double, but it was because you and the partner are splitting it. You're splitting it. So it was more than that. I don't know if it was double or whatever, but it was higher numbers than that. So I get there, and it's one of these things. So you pull in, it's packed. I walk in, and I'm like, I still haven't looked at the workout today. I'm like, why are there so many people here? I didn't get it was partner yet. And all of a sudden the gym owner, who's my trainer, says, you're partnering up with Sally over here, whatever her name was. And she looks pretty in shape, right? And I'm talking to her, and she's like, yeah, I'm a marathon runner, this, that. I'm like, what? And at this point, I can't run very much. And then all of a sudden I turn back and I look at, the numbers that Dave was talking about, and they were higher than these numbers in partner Murph, and I went into panic mode. I was like, holy shit. And all I'm thinking, this is the first time in my life that I really felt fight or flight. Right. And this was all flight. Right. I was like, how do I leave here? I got to get in my car right now. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave here. And I'm telling you, if they had not partnered me up with this woman, I would have 100% left the gym. There was that much panic.
Because when you see that, when you see it's 8 minutes, you're like, even though this is going to suck, it's going to be 8 minutes. Yeah. When you see it's that much work, you're like, I'm going to have to be here for an hour and a half.
Yes.
Through suffering.
And they said basically it was like, it was time limit of 25 minutes. So it could go as long as 25 minutes or something like that. And it was like, it was like that. It was like, whatever, mile run. And I can't run at this point. It's like, wait, mile run, then come back. Then we're splitting whatever, 500 air squats, whatever, 200 push-ups, 300. I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Anyway, I made it through, and I enjoyed doing CrossFit through that.
And then
and then I did it for a couple of years, and then then I started to change it up and do different things, and went back to kind of more of what you were doing before CrossFit, a bodybuilder style workout.
Yep.
You know, got into powerlifting a little bit because I was it really the things that what kept changing for me was my goals. And so in CrossFit, it was just in the beginning, it was like, I just want to get back into fitness. And then at CrossFit, I was like, man, I'm not strong enough. My strength is not there. And so I started to do a modified kind of strength bias CrossFit. And then that led me to get into more powerlifting stuff because I just needed to get my core lifts up. I just felt weak.
What's your goal now? You're doing all this body weight stuff, which is the next movement.
Yes.
So it's kind of the next wave of fitness is this body weight stuff.
Yeah. So I've always been kind of a voracious consumer of information, right? Reader or whatever. And so CrossFit, you know, started to follow that pretty early, 2008, 2009, early days. Like there weren't many. There were like 2 gyms in Massachusetts that I can remember. And then it exploded. And then powerlifting a bit. And then I got to a point where my goals changed. And I said, like, I just want to be able to do certain body weight things like, man, I can't really do handstand push-ups, which is a thing in CrossFit. So I started to think about that. Why can't I do more pull-ups? Why I feel like I'm doing my pull-ups wrong. I feel like I want to be able to do a lot of stuff that we were doing in CrossFit, muscle-ups. But I started to lean more towards these kind of like body weight
And
things.
it's even so this is body weight is crazy because even the strongest people that you might see, so you might go to the Y and you might see that guy and he's got all the plates laying under the bench, right? But if you grabbed him and you said, do a handstand, couldn't do it. Do 5 pull-ups, couldn't do it.
Yeah. Do a muscle up.
It's just a new challenge.
It's a new challenge.
I can see why you like it because it's like, wait a second, there's no weight, there's just you, and this shit is really hard.
Really hard. And the progressions are, one thing that has been challenging in getting into the bodyweight stuff is that the progressions are much harder to understand. When you're doing like pure bodybuilding stuff or even CrossFit stuff, the progressions are pretty black and white, right? It's time-based. It's as many reps as possible, AMRAP, or it's just straight.
Like you're like, oh, last week I did 200 pounds. This week I'm going to try to do 210.
Or I did 5 reps and I'm going to do 6 reps.
Right. There's not as much. It's not as quantifiable.
Yeah, the linear progression is really simple. The hard thing in bodyweight stuff is that the linear progression involves different movements. So you may start, if your ultimate goal might be to do a muscle up, you may start with something that looks nothing like a muscle up or a front lever, let's say, or L-sit. These are all different bodyweight movements. Your first progression looks nothing like what the end progression is. And so you got to get really good at that. And then the next thing. And so it's kind of, it's harder. I started to follow a guy like 3 or 4 years ago online. His name is Ido Portal, a guy who has this kind of like this movement kind of movement, right? Like
just look him up on Instagram, and your mind will be blown.
Yeah, IDOPORTAL, Ido Portal, and his thing is really just movement. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about exercise. He doesn't care about gymnastics versus weightlifting, whatever. It's just like we as humans were built to move, in his opinion, and so let's put an emphasis on how much we can move each day and which dimensions we can move in and all that kind of stuff. So I got into that, just followed him online a lot, and got interested in body weight. I now have a coach who comes to my house, luckily once a week, twice a week sometimes, and it's helping me through these progressions. But I'm really into this idea of like at some point being able to do the muscle up or the handstand pull up, push-ups, or all of these different kind of like basically mastery of my own body.
All right, so let's leave people with a goal.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the goal is to, I think it's
to
set,
move.
I think it's set a goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, this is a little pet peeve of mine. It's one of the things that you see in startup culture a lot. Yeah. It's like you see these people write these medium articles, and it's like, how drinking water and working out like changed my was a life hack for me, and it's like that drives me insane.
Me too.
It's one of those things that.
Yeah, that's
so. I think one of the things is like make it a priority. It has to be a priority for you if you really want to do it. But you said I think a lot of people think the way you think, and I do too, which is like if you have a goal that makes you can see how you're going to get there.
Yep.
So even if you just set like first week 2 times a week, I'm going to try to get 30 minutes of something in a day. Yeah,
and we'd love if you tweet at us and share your goal. We'll be happy to share our goals right now too.
So that's a better call to action for this show. All right, so here's the deal. So you listen to this episode, we want to know, like, okay, we told you about the stuff we do. You know, what's your fitness routine like? Or maybe, you know, if you're not into it yet, are you trying to set a goal for this year? So tell us what you do.
Yep.
Tell us what your goal is. And, you know, just holler at us, and, you know, maybe we can be helpful in helping you get there, or just kind of, you know, share some stories.
Awesome. And my goals right now are body weight, get a better L-sit, and finally be able to do, it might take me a few years, a front lever. So look that up, front lever. It's a gymnastics move. It's hard. I don't know how long it'll take, but that's my ultimate goal. What's your goal, Dave?
Man, you put me on the spot.
Let's hear it, man. How much weight?
It's not even weight. So I've gotten a lot stronger in the last 2 years. I want to be able to do a muscle up on the rings. I can do them on the bar.
Awesome.
The rings are really hard.
Yep.
So a lot of gymnastics stuff.
Awesome.
That's
so
the hard stuff.
Tell us your goals. Extra points if you send us a picture of you working out.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good one. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, stay healthy.